What is a green product?
Green products are environmentally safe products that contain no chlorofluorocarbons, are degradable, can decompose, and are made from recycled materials. Deep green products are those from small suppliers who build their identities around their claimed environmental virtues. Greened up products come from the industry giants and are environmentally improved versions of established brands.
How much has internet usage changed in recent years?
According to industry surveys, internet usage has surged, increasing by nearly 400% between 2000 and 2009. Far exceeding earlier estimates that there would be 1 billion users by 2005. Africa and the Middle East have shown the greatest rate of growth.
What is a whiteout?
An official definition for whiteout does not exist. It is a colloquial term that can describe any condition during snowfall that severely restricts visibility. That may mean a blizzard, or snow squall, etc. If you get some sunlight in the mix, that makes the situation even worse. It's like driving in fog with your headlights on high beam. The light gets backscattered right into your eyes and you can't see.
What substance, other than water, is less dense as a solid than as a liquid?
Only bismuth and water share this characteristic. Density, the mass per unit volume or mass/volume, refers to how compact or crowded a substance is. For instance, the density of water is 1 g/cm3, gram per cubic centimeter, or 1 kg/L, kilogram per liter. The density of a rock is 3.3 g/cm3, pure iron is 7.9 g/cm3, and Earth, as a whole, is 5.5 g/cm3, average. Water as a solid, i.e., ice, floats.
What is cogeneration?
Cogeneration is an energy production process involving the simultaneous generation of thermal steam or hot water, and electric energy by using a single primary heat source. By producing two kinds of useful fuels in the same facility, the net energy yield from the primary fuel increases from 30 to 35% to 80 to 90%. Cogeneration can result in significant cost savings and can reduce any possible environmental effects conventional energy production may produce. Cogeneration facilities have been installed at a variety of sites, including oil refineries, Chemical plants, paper mills, utility complexes, and mining operations.
What is lactose intolerance?
Lactose, the principal sugar in cow's milk and found only in dairy products. Requires the enzyme lactase for human digestion. Lactose intolerance occurs when the lining of the walls of a person's small intestine does not produce normal amounts of this enzyme. Lactose intolerance causes abdominal cramps, bloating, diarrhea, and excessive gas when more than a certain amount of milk is ingested. Most people are less able to tolerate lactose as they grow older. A person having lactose intolerance need not eliminate dairy products totally from the diet. Decreasing the consumption of milk products, drinking milk only during meals, and getting calcium from cheese, yogurt, and other dairy products having lower lactose values are options. Another alternative is to buy a commercial lactose preparation that can be mixed into milk. These preparations convert lactose into simple sugars that can be easily digested.
Who is known as the founder of botany?
The ancient Greek Theophrastus, c. 372 c. 287 BCE, is known as the father of botany. His two works on botany, on the history of plants and on the causes of plants, were so comprehensive that 800 years passed before any new significant botanical information was discovered. He integrated the practice of agriculture into botany and established theories regarding plant growth and the analysis of plant structure. He related plants to their natural environment and identified, classified, and described 550 different plants.
Which government agencies regulate the storage of nuclear waste?
The Department of Energy, DOE, Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and Nuclear Regulatory Commission, NRC, are responsible for the disposal of spent nuclear fuel and other radioactive waste. The DOE has the responsibility for developing permanent disposal capacity for spent fuel and other high-level radioactive waste. The EPA has responsibility for developing environmental standards to evaluate the safety of a geologic repository. The NRC has responsibility for developing regulations to implement the EPA safety standards and for licensing the repository.
What is the most destructive insect in the world?
The most destructive insect is the desert locust, Schistosera gregaria. The locust of the Bible, whose habitat ranges from the dry and semi-arid Regions of Africa and the Middle East, through Pakistan and northern India. This shorthorn grasshopper can eat its own weight in food a day. And during long migratory flights a large swarm can consume 20,000 tons, 18,144,000 kilograms, of grain and vegetation a day.
What is the difference between weather and climate?
Weather is the current condition of the atmosphere. Climate is the long-term average weather for a particular place or region. Often a 30-year average, although also calculated for 10-year averages. Climate describes the average weather pattern of a locale. Climatic elements include precipitation, temperature, humidity, sunshine, wind velocity, and other measures of weather such as fog, frost, and other storms.
Why do some dentists treat the molars and premolars of children with sealants?
Sealants, a soft plastic coating applied to the tooth surface, can protect a child's first and second permanent molars from decay by filling in the pits and fissures where food and bacteria might otherwise accumulate. The plastic is hardened with a special light or chemical.
Who discovered the antibiotic streptomycin?
The Russian-born microbiologist Selman A. Waxman, 1888 to 1973, discovered streptomycin in 1943. Streptomycin was the first antibiotic effective against tuberculosis. In 1944 Merck & Company agreed to produce it to be used against tuberculosis and tuberculosis meningitis. Streptomycin ultimately proved to have some human toxicity and was supplanted by other antibiotics. But its discovery changed the course of modern medicine. In addition to its use in treating tuberculosis, it was also used to treat bacterial meningitis, endocarditis, pulmonary and urinary tract infections, leprosy, typhoid fever, bacillary dysentery, cholera, and bubonic plague. Streptomycin saved countless lives, and its development led scientists to search the microbial world for other antibiotics and medicines. Waxman received the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1952 for his discovery of streptomycin.
When was the Ice Age?
Ice ages, or glacial periods, have occurred at irregular intervals for over 2.3 billion years. During an ice age, sheets of ice cover large portions of the continents. The exact reasons for the changes in Earth's climate are not known, although some think they are caused by changes in Earth's orbit around the Sun. The Great Ice Age occurred during the Pleistocene epoch. which began about 2 million years ago and lasted until 11,000 years ago. At its height, about 27% of the world's present land area was covered by ice. In North America, the ice covered Canada and moved southward to New Jersey, in the Midwest. It reached as far south as St. Louis. Small glaciers and ice caps also covered the western mountains. Greenland was covered in ice as it is today. In Europe, ice moved down from Scandinavia into Germany and Poland. The British Isles and the Alps also had ice caps. Glaciers also covered the northern plains of Russia. The plateaus of Central Asia, Siberia, and the Kamchatka Peninsula. The glacier's effect on the United States can still be seen. The drainage of the Ohio River and the position of the Great Lakes were influenced by the glaciers. The rich soil of the Midwest is mostly glacial in origin. Rainfall in areas south of the glaciers formed large lakes in Utah, Nevada, and California. The Great Salt Lake in Utah is a remnant of one of these lakes. The large ice sheets locked up a lot of water. Sea level fell about 450 feet, 137 meters, below what it is today. As a result, some states, such as Florida, were much larger during the Ice Age. The glaciers of the last Ice Age retreated about 11,000 years ago. Some believe that the Ice Age is not over yet. The glaciers follow a cycle of advance and retreat many times. There are still areas of the Earth covered by ice, and this may be a time in between glacial advances.
How hard does the heart work?
The heart squeezes out about 2 ounces, 71 grams. Of blood at every beat and daily pumps at least 2,500 gallons, 9,450 liters, of blood. On the average, the adult heart beats 70 to 75 times a minute. The rate of the heartbeat is determined in part by the size of the organism. Generally, the smaller the size, the faster the heartbeat. Thus women's hearts beat 6 to 8 beats per minute faster than men's hearts do. At birth the heart of a baby can beat as fast as 130 times per minute.
When should a fluorescent light be turned off to save energy?
Fluorescent lights use a lot of electric current getting started. And frequently switching the light on and off will shorten the lamp's life and efficiency. It is energy efficient to turn off a fluorescent light only if it will not be used again within 15 minutes.
What cell structures are unique to plant cells and which ones are unique to animal cells?
The chloroplast, central vacuole, tonoplast, cell wall, and plasmodesmata are only found to occur in plant cells. Lysosomes and centrioles are found only in animal cells.
What were the Beagle voyages?
The HMS Beagle was a naval survey ship that left England in December 1831 to chart the coastal waters of Patagonia, Peru, and Chile. On a voyage that would last 5 years, Darwin's job as unpaid companion to the captain on board the Beagle allowed him to satisfy his interests in natural history. On its way to Asia, the ship spent time in the Galapagos Islands off the coast of Ecuador. Darwin's observations there caused him to generate his theory of natural selection.
How fast can a crocodile run on land?
In smaller crocodiles, the running gait can change into a bounding gallop that can achieve speeds of 2 to 10 miles, 3 to 17 kilometers per hour.
What are imaginary numbers?
Imaginary numbers are the square roots of negative numbers. Since the square is the product of two equal numbers with like signs, it is always positive. Therefore, no number multiplied by itself can give a negative real number. The symbol I is used to indicate an imaginary number.
Why do the leaves of the mimosa plant close in response to touch?
When a leaf of the mimosa plant, also known as the sensitive plant, is touched, a minute electric current is generated that is quickly transmitted to the cells at the base of each leaflet. As soon as the signal arrives to the cells, the water contained in the cells is released. Due to loss of water, the leaves collapse downward.
How long do animals, in particular mammals, live?
Of the mammals, humans and fin whales live the longest. Below is the maximum lifespan for several animal species.
What is the probability of a triple play occurring in a single baseball game?
The odds against a triple play in a game of baseball are 1,400 to 1.
If a magnetic bar is cut in two, will it yield a North Pole and a South Pole magnet?
Every magnet contains both a North Pole and a South Pole. There are no magnets which are purely north or south. Cutting a magnetic bar in half will produce two magnets each with a north pole and a south pole.
Prior to the condom, what was the main contraceptive practice?
Contraceptive devices have been used throughout recorded history. The most traditional of such devices was a sponge soaked in vinegar. The condom was named for its English inventor, the personal physician to Charles II, 1630 to 1685, who used a sheath of stretched, oiled sheep intestine to protect the king from syphilis. Previously penile sheaths were used, such as the linen one made by Italian anatomist Gabriel Fio Pius. 1523 to 1562, but they were too heavy to be successful.
What is Kevlar?
The registered trademark Kevlar refers to synthetic fiber called liquid crystalline polymers. Discovered by Stephanie Kwolek, 1923, Kevlar is a thin, very strong fiber. It is best known for its use in bulletproof garments.
The areas of glaciation in some parts of the world are, which is purer, glacier ice or regular ice?
Impurities found in the snow grains of glaciers have mostly moved to the boundaries of the grains and been flushed out. Glacier ice is like triple distilled water and hence purer than regular ice.
What is an Alberta clipper?
An Alberta clipper is a little gyrating storm that develops on the Pacific front, usually over the Rocky Mountains of Alberta, Canada. This quick-moving storm moves southeast into the Great Plains, leaving a trail of cold air.
What is a trophic level?
A trophic level represents a step in the dynamics of energy flow through an ecosystem. The first trophic level is made up of the producers, those within the ecosystem that harvest energy from an outside source like the sun, or deep-sea thermal vents, and stabilize or fix it so that it remains in the system and is accessible to others within the system. The second level would comprise those who consume the producers, also known as the primary consumers. The next level would contain the secondary consumers, those who consume the primary consumers, and so on. Because of the limited amount of energy available to each level, these trophic pyramids rarely rise above a third or fourth level of structure. R. Lindemann, 1915 to 1942, was one of the first ecologists to refer to the trophic dynamics of ecosystems, doing so in 1942.
What was the first mammal to be successfully cloned?
The first mammal cloned from adult cells was Dolly, NU born 0 and July 5. 1996 Dolly was born in a research facility in Scotland. Ian Wilmut, 1944, led the team of biologists that removed a nucleus from a mammary cell of an adult ewe and transplanted it into an enucleated egg extracted from a second ewe. Electrical pulses were administered to fuse the nucleus with its new host. When the egg began to divide and develop into an embryo, it was transplanted into a surrogate mother ewe. Dolly was the genetic twin of the ewe that donated the mammary cell nucleus. On April 13, 1998, Dolly gave birth to Bonnie, the product of a normal mating between Dolly and a Welsh mountain ram. This event demonstrates that Dolly was a healthy, fertile sheep, able to produce healthy offspring. Dolly was euthanized on February 14, 2003. Because she had severe arthritis and a progressive lung disease that was caused by the retrovirus JSRV.
When was Google founded?
In 1996 Stanford University graduate student Larry Page, 1973. And Sergey Brin, 1973, began collaborating on a search engine called Backrub. Backrub operated on the Stanford servers for more than a year until it began to take up too much bandwidth. In 1997, Page and Brin decided they needed a new name for the search engine and decided upon Google as a play on the mathematical term Google. A Google is the numeral 1 followed by 100 zeros. Their goal was to organize the seemingly infinite amount of information on the web. Google first incorporated as a company in September 1998 and the corporation went public in 2004.
Which tree that is native to the United States almost became extinct due to fungus?
The American chestnut, Castanea dentata, was widespread across eastern North America until the early 1900s. It was one of the most important trees of the eastern hardwood forest and made up almost half of the population of trees in central and southern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and southern New England. In its entire range, the species dominated the deciduous forests, making up almost 1/4 of the trees. The fungus Cryphonectria parasitica, commonly known as the chestnut blight, caused the near extinction of the American chestnut tree in North America. Through ongoing genetic studies and improvements in plant breeding techniques, the American Chestnut Foundation is working to restore this tree to its native range within the woodlands of the eastern United States.
Yuck, the symbol for dangerous or poisonous products, developed?
The Pittsburgh Poison Center developed the Mr. Yuck symbol in 1971. The depiction of a green, gagging face with an extended tongue is used by Children's Hospital to promote prevention education through affiliated hospitals and poison centers. In the testing program, children at daycare centers selected Mr. Yuck as the symbol that represented the most unappealing product. Among the other symbols used were a red stop sign and a skull and crossbones. Interestingly, the children found the skull and crossbones the most appealing symbol.
Who are some of the founders of modern chemistry?
The history of chemistry in its modern form is often considered to begin with the British scientist Robert Boyle. 1627 to 1691, although its roots can be traced back to the earliest recorded history. Best known for his discovery of Boyle's law, volume of a gas is inversely proportional to its pressure at constant temperature. He was a pioneer in the use of experiments and the scientific method. A founder of the Royal Society. He worked to remove the mystique of alchemy from chemistry to make it a pure science. The French chemist Antoine Laurent Lavoisier, 1743 to 1794. Is regarded as another important founder of modern chemistry. Indeed, he is considered the father of modern chemistry. His wide-ranging contributions include the discrediting of the phlogiston theory of combustion, which long had been a stumbling block to a true understanding of chemistry. He established modern terminology for chemical substances, and did the first experiments in quantitative organic analysis. He is sometimes credited with having discovered or established the law of conservation of mass in chemical reactions. John Dalton, 1766 to 1844, an English chemist, who proposed an atomic theory of matter that became a basic theory of modern chemistry, is also an important figure in the development of the field. His theory, first proposed in 1803, states that each chemical element is composed of its own kind of atoms, all with the same relative weight. Another important individual in the development of modern chemistry was Swedish chemist Jöns Jacob Berzelius, 1779 to 1848. He devised chemical symbols, determined atomic weights, contributed to the atomic theory, and discovered several new elements. Between 1810 and 1816, he described the preparation, purification, and analysis of 2,000 chemical compounds. Then he determined atomic weights for 40 elements. He simplified chemical symbols, introducing annotation letters with numbers that replaced the pictorial symbols his predecessors used, and that is still used today. He discovered cerium, in 1803, with Wilhelm Hisinger, selenium, 1818, silicon, 1824, and thorium, 1829.
How often does an aurora appear?
Because it depends on solar winds, electrical particles generated by the sun, and sunspot activity. The frequency of an aurora cannot be determined. Auroras usually appear 2 days after a solar flare, a violent eruption of particles on the sun's surface, and reach their peak 2 years into the 11-year sunspot cycle. The auroras, occurring in the polar regions, are broad displays of usually colored light at night. The northern polar aurora is called aurora borealis or northern lights, and the southern polar aurora is called the aurora australis.
Are there any diamond mines in the United States?
The United States has no commercial diamond mines. The only significant diamond deposit in North America is Crater of Diamonds State Park near Murfreesboro, Arkansas. It is on government-owned land and has never been systematically developed. For a small fee, tourists can dig there and try to find diamonds. The largest crystal found there weighed 40.23 carats and was named the Uncle Sam diamond. Diamonds crystallize directly from rock melts rich in magnesium and saturated with carbon dioxide gas that has been subjected to high pressures and temperatures exceeding 2,559 degrees Fahrenheit 1,400 degrees Celsius. These rock melts originally came from deep in Earth's mantle at depths of 93 miles, 150 kilometers. Diamonds are minerals composed entirely of the element carbon, with an isometric crystalline structure. The hardest natural substance, gem diamonds, have a density of 3.53, though black diamonds, black carbon coke-like aggregates of microscopic crystals, may have a density as low as 3.15. Diamonds have the highest thermal conductivity of any known substance. This property enables diamonds to be used in cutting tools, because they do not become hot.
Who invented the electron microscope?
The theoretical and practical limits to the use of the optical microscope were set by the wavelength of light. When the oscilloscope was developed, it was realized that cathode ray beams could be used to resolve much finer detail because their wavelength was so much shorter than that of light. In 1928, Ernst Ruska, 1906 to 1988, and Max Knoll, 1897 to 1969, using magnetic fields to focus electrons in a cathode ray beam, produced a crude instrument that gave a magnification of 17, and by 1932 they had developed an electron microscope having a magnification of 400. By 1937, James Hillier, 1915 to 2007, had advanced this magnification to 7,000. The 1939 instrument Vladimir Zworykin, 1889 to 1982, developed gave 50 times more detail than any optical microscope ever could, with a magnification up to 2 million. The electron microscope revolutionized biological research. For the first time, scientists could see the molecules of cell structures, proteins, and viruses.
What is pelvic inflammatory disease?
Pelvic inflammatory disease, PID, is a term used for a group of infections in the female organs, including inflammations of the fallopian tubes, cervix, uterus, and ovaries. It is the most common cause of female infertility today. PID is most often found in sexually active women under the age of 25 and almost always results from gonorrhea or chlamydia. But women who use intrauterine devices, IUDs, are also at risk.
How many hairs does the average person have on his or her head?
The amount of hair on the head varies from one individual to another. An average person has about 100,000 hairs on their scalp. Blondes 140,000, brunettes 155,000, and redheads only 85,000. Most people shed between 50 to 100 hairs daily.
Are cell phones dangerous to your health?
Scientific research has failed to show an association between exposure to radio frequency, energy from a cell phone, and health problems. The results of one of the largest studies, released in 2010, of the health effects of cell phone usage found there was little or no health risk, including the development of brain tumors, from cell phone use.
What is slag?
Slag is a nonmetallic byproduct of iron production that is drawn from the surface of pig iron in the blast furnace. Slag can also be produced in smelting copper, lead, and other metals. Slag from steel blast furnaces contains lime, iron oxide, and silica. The slag from copper and lead smelting furnaces contains iron silicate and oxides of other metals in small amounts. Slag is used in cements, concrete, and roofing materials as well as ballast for roads and railways.
Are viruses living organisms?
Viruses cannot grow or replicate on their own and are inert outside their living host cell. Once they enter a host cell, they become active. As such, they are between life and non-life and are not considered living organisms. The purified virus precipitated in the form of crystals. During this investigation, Stanley was able to demonstrate that viruses can be regarded as chemical matter rather than as living organisms. The purified crystals retain the ability to infect healthy tobacco plants, thus characterizing them as viruses, not merely chemical compounds derived from a virus. Subsequent studies showed that the tobacco mosaic virus consisted of a protein and a nucleic acid. Further studies showed that this virus consisted of RNA, ribonucleic acid, surrounded by a protein coat. Stanley was awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1946 for his discovery.
How common are multiple births?
In 2007, 138,961 twins were born in the United States. This represented 3.2% of all live births, a birth ratio of 32.2 per 1,000 births. There were 5,967 triplet births, 369 quadruplet births, and 91 quintuplets and other higher-order births. In 2007, the birth rate for triplets or higher-order multiple births was 148.9 per 100,000 live births.
When was the bald eagle adopted as the national bird of the United States?
On June 20, 1782, the citizens of the newly independent United States of America adopted the bald or American eagle as their national emblem. At first the heraldic artists depicted a bird that could have been a member of any of the larger species. But by 1902, the bird portrayed on the seal of the United States of America had assumed its proper white plumage on the head and tail. The choice of the bald eagle was not unanimous. Benjamin Franklin, 1706 to 1790, preferred the wild turkey. Oftentimes a tongue-in-cheek humorist, Franklin thought the turkey a wily but brave, intelligent, and prudent bird. He viewed the eagle on the other hand as having a bad moral character and not getting his living honestly, preferring instead to steal fish from hard-working fish hawks. He also found the eagle a coward that readily flees from the irritating attacks of the much smaller kingbird.
Who successfully demonstrated that curved balls actually curve?
In 1959, Lyman Briggs, 1874 to 1963, demonstrated that a ball can curve up to 17.5 inches, 44.45 centimeters. Over the 60 feet 6 inches, 18.4 meters, it travels between a pitcher and a batter, ending the debate of whether curved balls actually curved or if the apparent change in course was merely an optical illusion. Briggs studied the effect of spin and speed on the trajectory and established the relationship between amount of curvature and the spin of the ball. A rapidly spinning baseball experiences two lift forces that cause it to curve in flight. One is the Magnus force, named after H. G. Magnus, 1802 to 1870. the German physicist who discovered it, and the other is the wake deflection force. The Magnus force causes the curved ball to move sideways because the pressure forces on the ball's sides do not balance each other. The stitches on a baseball cause the pressure on one side of the ball to be less than on its opposite side. This forces the ball to move faster on one side than the other and forces the ball to curve. The wake deflection force also causes the ball to curve to one side. It occurs because the air flowing around the ball in the direction of its rotation remains attached to the ball longer and the ball's wake is deflected.
What is the sieve of Eratosthenes?
Eratosthenes, c. 285 c. 205 BCE, was a Greek mathematician and philosopher who devised a method to identify or sift out prime numbers from a list of natural numbers arranged in order. It is a simple method, although it becomes tedious to identify large prime numbers. The steps of the sieve are: write all natural numbers in order. Omitting 1. Circle the number 2 and then cross out every other number. Every second number will be a multiple of 2 and hence is not a prime number. Circle the number 3 and then cross out every third number which will be a multiple of 3 and therefore, not a prime number. The numbers that are circled are prime and those that are crossed out are composite numbers.
What are the advantages of tempered glass?
Tempered glass is glass that is heat treated. Glass is first heated and then the surfaces are cooled rapidly. The edges cool first, leaving the center relatively hot compared to the surfaces. As the center cools, it forces the surfaces and edges into compression. Tempered glass is approximately 4 times as strong as annealed glass. It is able to resist temperature differences of 200 degree F, 300 degree F, 90 degree C, 150 degree C. Since it resists breakage, it is favored in many applications for its safety. Characteristics such as automobiles, doors, tub and shower enclosures, and skylights.
Do all cells have a nucleus?
Prokaryotic cells do not have an organized nucleus. Most eukaryotic cells have a single organized nucleus. Red blood cells are the only mammalian cells that do not have a nucleus.
Who invented chromatography?
Chromatography was invented by the Russian botanist Mikhail Tsvet, 1872 to 1919, in the early 1900s. The technique was first used to separate different plant pigments from one another. Chromatography has developed into a widely used method to separate various components of a substance from one another. Three types of chromatography are high-performance liquid chromatography, HPLC, gas chromatography, and paper chromatography. Different chromatography techniques are used in forensic science and analytical laboratories.
What is a dietary supplement?
According to the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, DSHEA, a dietary supplement is a product taken by mouth that contains a dietary ingredient intended to supplement the diet. The dietary ingredient may include vitamins, minerals, herbs, or other botanicals. Amino acids, a dietary substance to supplement the diet by increasing the total dietary intake. Or a concentrate, metabolite, constituent, or extract. They may be in any form: tablets, capsules, liquids, gel caps, or powders. The DSHEA places dietary supplements in a special category under the general umbrella of foods, not drugs, and requires that every supplement be labeled a dietary supplement.
Which U.S. hurricanes have caused the most deaths?
The 10 deadliest United States hurricanes are listed below.
How many quills does a porcupine have?
For its defensive weapon, the average North American porcupine has about 30,000 quills or specialized hairs. Comparable in hardness and flexibility to slivers of celluloid, and so sharply pointed that they can penetrate any hide. The quills that do the most damage are the short ones that stud the porcupine's muscular tail. With a few lashes, the porcupine can send a rain of quills that have tiny scale-like barbs into the skin of its adversary. The quills work their way inward because of their barbs and the involuntary muscular action of the victim. Sometimes the quills can work themselves out, but other times the quills pierce vital organs, and the victim dies. Slow-footed and stocky, porcupines spend much of their time in the trees, using their formidable incisors to strip off bark and foliage for their food, and supplement their diets with fruits and grasses. Porcupines have a ravenous appetite for salt, as herbivores. Plant-eating animals, their diets have insufficient salt. So natural salt licks, animal bones left by carnivores, meat-eating animals. Yellow pond lilies, and other items having a high salt content, including paints, plywood adhesives, and human clothing that bears traces of sweat, have a strong appeal to porcupines.
When do most tornadoes happen?
Tornadoes can happen at any time of the year and at any time during the day or night. Tornadoes are most likely to happen in the United States during March through August. There is a general northward shift in the tornado season from late winter through midsummer. Regionally, tornado activity increases in the central Gulf Coast as early as February. Then shifts to the southeastern Atlantic states in March and April before moving to the southern plains in May and early June. The greatest amount of tornado activity is in June and July in the northern plains and upper Midwest. Statistically, most tornadoes strike between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m.
What are the 3 bones in the middle ear?
The 3 bones in the middle ear are the malleus, hammer, the incus, anvil, and the stapes, stirrup. The bones look somewhat like the objects for which they are named. These 3 tiny bones in the middle ear bridge the eardrum and the inner ear, transmitting sound vibrations.
Who is one of the first individuals associated with the scientific method?
Abu Ali al-Hasan ibn al-Haytham, c. 966-1039, whose name is usually Latinized to al-Hasan or al-Hassan, is known as the father of the science of optics and was also one of the earliest experimental scientists. Between the 10th and 14th centuries, Muslim scholars were responsible for the development of the scientific method. These individuals were the first to use experiments and observation as the basis of science. And many historians regard science as starting during this period. Al-Hasan is considered as the architect of the scientific method. His scientific method involved the following steps: observation of the natural world, stating a definite problem, formulating a hypothesis, test the hypothesis through experimentation, assess and analyze the results, interpret the data and draw conclusions, publish the findings.
What is the Mohs scale?
The Mohs scale is a standard of 10 minerals by which the hardness of a mineral is rated. It was introduced in 1812 by the German mineralogist Friedrich Mohs, 1773-1839. The minerals are arranged from softest to hardest. Harder minerals, with higher numbers, can scratch those with a lower number.
What is inertia?
Inertia is the tendency of all objects and matter in the universe to stay still, or, if moving, to continue moving in the same direction unless acted on by some outside force. This forms the first law of motion formulated by Isaac Newton, 1642 to 1727. To move a body at rest, enough external force must be used to overcome the object's inertia. The larger the object is, the more force is required to move it. In his Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, published in 1687, Newton sets forth all three laws of motion. Newton's second law is that the force to move a body is equal to its mass times its acceleration. F equals ma, and the third law states that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction.
How is activated charcoal used medically?
Activated charcoal is an organic substance, such as burned wood or coal, that has been heated to approximately 1000 degrees Fahrenheit 537 degrees Celsius in a controlled atmosphere. The result is a fine powder containing thousands of pores that have great absorbent qualities to rapidly absorb toxins and poisons. Activated charcoal is used medically in the treatment of drug overdoses and poisonings.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of geothermal power?
Geothermal energy is a renewable resource that is mostly emission and pollution-free. Costs to operate a geothermal power plant are relatively inexpensive. It has the potential to produce power consistently, unlike wind and solar power. Currently, drilling for geothermal energy is expensive. Since rocks lose heat over time, new sites and wells have to be drilled.
When did Mount St. Helens erupt?
Mount St. Helens, located in southwestern Washington state in the Cascades mountain range, erupted on May 18, 1980. 61 people died as a result of the eruption. This was the first known eruption in the 48 contiguous United States to claim a human life. Geologists call Mount St. Helens a composite volcano, a steep-sided, often symmetrical cone constructed of alternating layers of lava flows, ash, and other volcanic debris. Composite volcanoes tend to erupt explosively. Mount St. Helens and the other active volcanoes in the Cascade Mountains are a part of the Ring of Fire, the Pacific Zone having frequent and destructive volcanic activity. Mt. St. Helens erupted again in October 2004. A steam plume billowed 10,000 feet, 3,048 meters, into the air. The eruption continued for 2.5 years, building a new lava dome. The new lava dome measured about 125 million cubic yards, 95.6 million cubic meters, or a volume equal to nearly 200 large sports stadiums. The amount of lava that erupted would have been enough to pave 7 highway lanes. 3 feet, 0.9 meter, thick, from New York City to Portland, Oregon. There was no loss of life during this eruptive period. Volcanoes have not only been active in Washington, but also in 3 other U.S. states: California, Alaska, and Hawaii. Lassen Peak is one of several volcanoes in the Cascade Range. It last erupted in 1921. Mount Katmai in Alaska had an eruption in 1912 in which the flood of hot ash formed the Valley of 10,000 Smokes 15 miles, 24 kilometers, away. And Hawaii has its famed Mauna Loa, which is the world's largest active volcano. Being 60 miles, 97 kilometers, in width at its base.
What is the Superfund Act?
In 1980, the U.S. Congress passed the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act, commonly known as the Superfund Program. This law, along with amendments in 1986 and 1990, established a $16.3 billion Superfund financed jointly by federal and state governments and by special taxes on chemical and petrochemical industries, which provide 86% of the funding. The purpose of the Superfund is to identify and clean up abandoned hazardous waste dump sites and leaking underground tanks that threaten human health and the environment. To keep taxpayers from footing most of the bill, cleanups are based on the polluter pays principle. The EPA is charged with locating dangerous dump sites, finding the potentially liable culprits, ordering them to pay for the entire cleanup and suing them if they don't. When the EPA can find no responsible party, it draws money out of the Superfund for cleanup.
Where is the North Star?
If an imaginary line is drawn from the North Pole into space, it will reach a star called Polaris, or the North Star, less than 1 degree away from the line. As Earth rotates on its axis, Polaris acts as a pivot point around which all the stars visible in the northern hemisphere appear to move, while Polaris itself remains motionless. Identifying Polaris was important for navigation since in locating Polaris it was possible to identify north. In addition, the angle of Polaris above the horizon indicates latitude on Earth.
Do loud noises cause avalanches?
Avalanches are not triggered by noise, but they are the only natural hazard that may be triggered by individuals walking, skiing, snowmobiling, and snowboarding on unstable snow. Many avalanches occur naturally without human provocation. Avalanches are great masses of snow that slide down mountainsides. The snow may be powdery, sliding over compacted older snow, slabs of snow that roll down the slope, or a combination of ice and snow from the slope, including rocks and other debris. Dry slab avalanches are the most dangerous. Traveling at speeds of 60 to 80 miles, 97 to 129 kilometers per hour.
Why do some biologists consider the insects the most successful group of animals?
With more than 1 million described species, and perhaps millions more not yet identified. Class Insecta is the most successful group of animals on Earth in terms of diversity. Geographic distribution, number of species, and number of individuals. More species of insects have been identified than of all other groups of animals combined. What insects lack in size, they make up for in sheer numbers. If we could weigh all the insects in the world, their weight would exceed that of all the remaining terrestrial animals. About 200 million insects are alive at any one time for each human.
What are the two types of nuclear reactors in the United States?
Nuclear power plants contain a reactor unit that releases heat to turn water into steam, which then drives the turbine generators that generate electricity. There are two types of reactors in the United States: boiling water reactors and pressurized water reactors. In a boiling water reactor, the water heated by the reactor core turns directly into steam in the reactor vessel and is then used to power the turbine generator. In a pressurized water reactor, the water heated by the reactor core is kept under pressure and does not turn to steam. The hot, radioactive, liquid water then flows through and heats thousands of tubes in a steam generator. Outside the hot tubes in the steam generator is non-radioactive water which boils and turns to steam. The radioactive water flows back into the reactor core, where it is reheated and then returns to the steam generator.
What is the difference between a gene and a chromosome?
The human genome contains 24 distinct, physically separate units called chromosomes. Arranged linearly along the chromosomes are tens of thousands of genes. The term gene refers to a particular part of a DNA molecule defined by a specific sequence of nucleotides. It is the specific sequence of the nitrogen bases that encodes a gene. The human genome contains about 3 billion base pairs, and the length of genes varies widely.
What is the difference between DNA and RNA?
DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, is a nucleic acid formed from a repetition of simple building blocks called nucleotides. The nucleotides consist of phosphate, PO4, sugar, deoxyribose, and a base that is either adenine, A, thymine, T, guanine, G, or cytosine, C. In a DNA molecule, this basic unit is repeated in a double helix structure made from two chains of nucleotides linked between the bases. The links are either between A and T or between G and C. The structure of the bases does not allow other kinds of links. The famous double helix structure resembles a twisted ladder. The 1962 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine was awarded to James Watson, Francis Crick, and Maurice Wilkins, 1916 to 2004, for determining the molecular structure of DNA. RNA, ribonucleic acid, is also a nucleic acid, but it consists of a single chain and the sugar is ribose rather than deoxyribose. The bases are the same except that the thymine, T, which appears in DNA, is replaced by another base called uracil, U, which links only to adenine, A.
Is the whale shark a mammal or a fish?
The whale shark, Rhincodon typus, is a shark, not a whale. It is, therefore, a fish. This species name merely indicates that it is the largest of all shark species. Weighing 40,000 pounds 18,144 kilograms or more and growing to lengths of 49 feet 15 meters or more, and the largest fish species in the world. However, it is completely harmless to humans.
Why were tomatoes often called love apples and considered aphrodisiacs?
Tomatoes belong to the nightshade family. They were cultivated in Peru and introduced to Europe by Spanish explorers. Tomatoes were introduced to Italy from Morocco. So the Italian name for the fruit was Pomi d'amore, meaning apples of the Moors. The French called the tomato pommes d'amour, meaning apples of love. This latter name may have referred to the fact that tomatoes were thought to have aphrodisiac powers. Or it may have been a corruption of the Italian name. When tomato plants were first introduced to Europe, many people viewed them with suspicion. Since poisonous members of the nightshade family were commonly known. Although the tomato is neither poisonous nor an aphrodisiac. It took centuries for it to fully overcome its undeserved reputation.